What up, y'all? This is Patrick Hayes, and I'm here at my Airbnb in Tucson, Arizona. And I'm thinking about comfort today. It's such an interesting subject, this idea of comfort, because it's something that everybody is seeking to a certain degree. We're seeking comfort in our lives. And it is something that, even if you're the type of person that pushes your comfort zone in order to evolve yourself, essentially what you're doing is you're working to grow your comfort zone so that you feel more comfortable in situations that you didn't feel comfortable to previously. So comfort is a big part of being human and understanding what comfort is. And it's something that everybody's seeking. So I want to talk about two different kinds of comfort and why it's important to understand these two different kinds of comfort. And then I also want to talk about a really powerful tool for being able to push your comfort zone to the right degree. So it's kind of a rule of thumb for staying in the sweet spot of pushing your comfort zone, not staying too stagnant, but then not pushing it too far and potentially re-traumatizing yourself. So comfort, two different kinds. The first kind of comfort I want to talk about is shy away comfort. And then I want to talk about breakaway comfort. So shy away comfort is the kind of comfort that people feel when they're shying away from a difficult thing. So, in my opinion, shy away comfort is actually, it is a weak form of comfort. So it's the kind of comfort where you're faced with something difficult, but instead of facing it, you choose to shy away from that difficult thing, and thus you feel comfortable because you're not having to face the difficult thing. Now, there are some occasions in which I would say that this is actually appropriate, and this is due more to the circumstantial logistics of what you're dealing with. Sometimes it's just not the appropriate time to attack whatever task it is that you have. And just because it's something that outside of your comfort zone, you might have a warrior mentality where you're like, well, it's outside of my comfort zone, I gotta attack it. Well, just because it's outside your comfort zone doesn't mean it's necessarily the time to attack it. You also have to be tactful about your timing and when you do things, because, as I'll get into the technique later, you don't want to over-traumatize yourself or traumatize yourself by pushing it too far. So we have shy away comfort, and this is, like I said, the kind of comfort where you might be thinking about doing something that's daring or something that pushes your comfort zone, and you say, you know what, I'm not going to do that, and I feel a lot comfortable now, but more comfortable now because I'm not, feeling the anxiety or the adrenaline of having to do this scary thing. And this is the kind of comfort that, in general, we want to be aware of it. We really want to be able to make the distinction between this kind of comfort and breakaway comfort, and we want to not get the two confused. Because breakaway comfort, conversely, on the other side, is the kind of comfort that you feel from pushing your comfort zone and then breaking away from whatever barriers that were making you feel uncomfortable, or lack of self-belief, or just anxiety that you felt because it's something that was uncharted territory and you hadn't experienced before. And when you break through that, then you basically expand your comfort zone, and then you feel comfortable because you've leveled up in a way. And this is the kind of comfort that we really want to preferentiate towards, because if we're always preferentiating towards the shy away comfort, then we're going to remain stagnant in life. We're not going to achieve very much, and we're not going to feel fulfilled in our lives, because we're going to move towards comfort no matter what. This is a natural inborn tendency. Humans move towards pleasure, they move towards comfort, and they move away from pain. So the idea is to move towards comfort through the pain. Not necessarily that it needs to be pain, but through the challenge, we could say. It's really important to be honest with yourself and clear about the distinction between these two on a moment-to-moment basis when we're making our decisions in life, because sometimes what can happen, especially when this is coupled with some of the new age philosophies like follow your bliss or do what is in your highest excitement, we can convince ourselves that shy away comfort is not actually shy away comfort, that it's our divine path or the thing that we should be doing because it is higher vibration. But it's important not to confuse shy away comfort as higher vibration. You might feel fear in the face of something difficult, and choosing to not do the difficult thing and then feeling that comfort and then labeling that as higher vibration is actually a mistake, especially if we know that we should be doing that thing. So when we can be honest with ourselves and say, well, is this something that I really know deep down is something I should be doing? And even though you might feel stress or anxiety or, all of these disruptive feelings within you, deep down that might really be something that you should be doing. And it's easy to convince yourself that you shouldn't do it, and that's following your bliss, or that's staying in the flow, or that's being the higher vibration, because when you choose not to do it, you feel relieved. And then the contrast between the stress and the relief makes you feel like, oh, well, this is higher vibration. I'm just happier when I don't feel stressful like this. So this is a major trap not to get stuck in, right? So you have to be aware of this. Be aware of the difference between the two different kinds of comfort. The idea is to preferentiate towards the breakaway comfort, right? We want to be growing our comfort zone by challenging ourselves. And that is ultimately how we grow as a person, as a human. That's how we evolve. Okay, so I want to talk about a very powerful tool now for how to kind of gauge the right level of facing the challenge. Because here's the thing. It's good to face challenges. But sometimes if you get too hopped up on this warrior mentality where you're like diving headfirst into the flames all the time, what can happen is, or especially if you haven't done it very much and you just get head over heels about something and dive headfirst into the flames, when you haven't really prepared yourself correctly, what can happen is you can traumatize yourself or re-traumatize yourself. So I see, one good example of this is, say that you have social anxiety and you want to get more comfortable talking to people or being in public places with groups of people. Well, it's not always a good idea to just throw yourself into like the middle of a rave or like some like crazy party, because if you don't have personal skills and it brings you anxiety to like be around people, throwing yourself in that kind of situation might very well re-traumatize you. It might just be too much where you couldn't handle it, and then it'll make it even harder to activate the motivation to go and socialize again in the future, because you just weren't ready for it. So the idea is baby steps, right? So maybe start out by just talking to people more, or maybe start out by hanging out with a small group of people before you just dive into a giant rave or huge party or, I don't know, big social engagement kind of thing. So you want to baby step as much as possible. Now, this doesn't discount the validity of sometimes just diving off the deep end. I've had major breakthrough experiences by doing something I was absolutely terrified at doing. I remember the first time that I performed music, it was like I was so terrified and I was so shaky, and it was eating at me for several days before it, and I just couldn't shake the anxiety off. But when I did it, I actually broke through, and that dissipated a lot of the fear that I had in context to doing performances. Just that one experience did. It dissipated a lot of it. So there is a time sometimes where you do need to just jump off the deep end, but you have to be honest with yourself and clear about what's good for you. So there are some times where you dive headfirst into flames, but you also want to be careful not to re-traumatize yourself. Now, a good rule of thumb for being able to determine whether you're capable of going forward into this particular challenge is all you have to do is keep one toe in your balance space, right? So meaning like, and what does that look like? Meaning that, so back to the social anxiety thing. If you go into an environment where it's so overwhelming that you absolutely cannot even remember any of the techniques that you're trying to practice, meaning you'll probably be practicing techniques like remembering to breathe, like calming down. Maybe I like to, when I'm anxious, I like to bring the energy down into my feet and feel my feet in the earth and breathe deeply. And if I feel my body tense, relax my body. If all that stuff's out the window because you can't even remember that, then basically you're putting yourself in a situation where you go unconscious. And it doesn't help to put yourself in a situation where you go unconscious, because that just perpetuates the negative pattern and can re-traumatize yourself. But if you have just a toe inside your sacred space, or comfort zone, you could call it. If you have just one toe inside that, meaning you have an element of consciousness with you, so that when you're in that situation, maybe 80% of the time you're forgetting and you're getting tense and you're getting back in your head and you're spinning, but oh wait, and now I'm remembering to breathe, and you breathe. If you have any amount of your consciousness that you can bring back to repattern your experience to the particular fear that you have or the challenge, then go for it. Then you can do it. You're learning and you're growing in that experience. But like I said, if you lose all consciousness, maybe step it down a bit so that you can find a situation that pushes your edge but doesn't take you into unconsciousness. And that is a healthy rule of thumb for how to push your edge. So you constantly want to look for the sweet spot where ideally you would have, I'd say about 50 to 80% discomfort and unconsciousness at the most. And preferably more I'd say 30% unconsciousness and 70% awareness. Because then what's going to happen is that awareness is going to grow, and it's going to grow. But you don't really want to go over 80%, because then it's the amount of gains that you're making might not really be worth the amount of stress that you're putting yourself through. So, so this is a great rule of thumb for being able to just be conscious about how you're pushing your edge. And this can help you to preferentiate yourself towards breakaway comfort, so that you have a system to apply to facing your challenges, as opposed to just kind of randomly going into stuff and not really knowing how to prepare yourself for it. So that's what I have for you today. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Patrick Hayes. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. If you haven't hit the bell button, hit the bell button, and then you'll be notified every time I release a video. And I am super stoked to continue on this topic. If you're interested in more videos on this topic, go ahead and write that in the comments. And if you have any questions, you can put that in the comments too, and I'd be happy to answer them. And I just want to send you much love, and I'll talk to you next time. This is Patrick Hayes.